Jayden Daniels isn't just QB1. He's already running the offense like it's his team. And we're looking to see that in action even more in OTA practice number 2 on Wednesday. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome inside Locked On Commanders, where we watch the film, break down the data, call it like we see it. I am your host, David Harrison. This is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And not only am I here with you 5 days a week, but I'm also covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com and for WUSA9.com. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view today. Whether you're an everydayer or just checking out the show, I appreciate you for coming through. To those everydayers, though, who come through for every show, a special thank you to you today and every single day. If you haven't already, please make sure you are subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode. If this is your first time, thank you for finding us. Welcome. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you come back again for more very, very soon. Coming up on today's episode, vets like Zach Ertz and Deebo Samuel are setting the tone, while a few key names remain out of practice. Rookies are making some noise along with some young guys, and we're starting with Jayden Daniels taking full control of the offense. That, of course, was the biggest takeaway following our OTA practice number 1 that we got to see. Again, this is not the Commanders' second OTA practice that we're going to on Wednesday. It's just our second OTA practice that we're going to get to watch on Wednesday. But we were on hand last Wednesday for the first OTA practice. That was the first OTA practice for us and for the team. And Jayden Daniels controlling the offense, really mastering Cliff Kingsbury's offense and taking ownership of it was kind of the main takeaway of doing it. Just not just running the offense, but again, starting to own it. And as we look forward to tomorrow's practice, we have to first look back at some of what we saw last week, specifically from Jayden and others. And it kind of sounds weird, right? I've done a couple of radio hits since that practice, but really, Jayden looked like Jayden. The last time we saw Jayden Daniels playing football, not in a game, I should say, was practice leading up to the NFC Championship game. The last time we saw him on a practice field before last week. Well, didn't look any different. And there are two ways that they can go as far as looking different, right? One, you can have guys come in that look a little bit, they're feeling themselves a little bit, maybe full of themselves a little bit, maybe not taking it as serious, thinking like, I got this. This is money in the bank and all that stuff. And there are guys who can come in and maybe trying to do too much, trying to elevate too quickly, maybe trying to be a second-year Hall of Fame type of quarterback, things like that. We didn't see any of that from Jayden. We saw the same poised, controlled, confident quarterback that we saw in rookie minicamp and all throughout last season. So I think that's a really good thing. People feel sometimes they need to continuously get better at everything. And then there's an old saying, when everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. I love that saying. I kind of live by that saying. You can only have one priority at a time. Jayden is really that kind of a guy. Today's practice, we're working on this. That's going to be the priority. Tomorrow's practice, we're going to work on something else. That'll be the priority then. Keep the main thing. The main thing, I think, is basically how this generation says it. It all means the same thing. I love it either way, no matter how you want to word it. Knowing the offense, running the offense, commanding the offense. Those are kind of the three different layers of comfortability for a quarterback within an offensive scheme. And last year we saw Jayden. I mean, honestly, rookie minicamp, people were ranting and raving about his knowledge of the system, knowledge of the playbook, knowledge of what Cliff Kingsbury wanted him to be able to do. So he was showing that very, very early on. As we see the season go by, really, I think after that 3-game losing streak, you kind of see it starting with Tennessee into New Orleans and really down the final stretch of the regular season. Jayden Daniels not just coming out there running the offense, but I think you really start to see him start kind of mastering it a little bit towards the end of last season, and then now commanding the offense, not just making an adjustment here or there, not just making a correction here or there, but knowing exactly where everybody's supposed to be, exactly how everything is supposed to go. Then you start to elevate yourself as a weapon within that offense. I think we can start to see that part of the progression even as we go into this, this regular season. I know he's already a weapon in the offense itself, but I'm talking about him finding ways to not just elevate his teammates, but also elevate his own play. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury gave us some praise for Jayden Daniels' mental growth and physical development before last week's practice, saying, quote, "You can see the comfort level was there this year. I mean, just watching him moving around, he's not thinking as much. He's playing fast, letting his natural gifts kind of take over. And that's what we want to see," end quote. And obviously every coach you ever talk to about football wants to see their players playing fast. I'd much rather you make a mistake and do it fast. That way we can work with you, because if you're not giving it 100% of effort, you're not playing fast, you're not playing to the full extent of your ability, we make a little tweak, then you go out there and try to play fast, then the entire game has changed. So you've seen Jayden Daniels really start to pick it up. So what are we looking for out of OTA practice number 2, the second practice that we get to go out there and witness? Well, obviously we want to see more of the same things, right? But we're kind of looking now, are the reads coming a little bit quicker? How's his rapport with veteran receiver, new teammate Deebo Samuel coming? How is that red zone sharpness looking a little bit early on in the process? You want to continue to see him throwing with anticipation, something he did really well, even as a rookie, which sometimes starts off well. You remember Sam Howell, not as a rookie, but as a second-year quarterback, first-year starter. In the beginning, threw with some pretty decent anticipation. The more he got beat up, the more the team lost, the more he threw turnovers, interceptions, all those things, that anticipation started to go away. We want to see Jayden Daniels continue to be anticipatory, but we want to see that anticipation grow even more when possible. Building rapport with Deebo Samuel, like we said, maybe you hit that 9 route this time, right? Remember last week, we saw Jayden target a deep route, a go route from Deebo Samuel against Jonathan Jones, placed the ball over the cornerback, placed it where only Deebo could make a play. But unfortunately, it was a little bit too far. Even Deebo couldn't make the play. Maybe now we can see that connection kind of start to come to fruition. Also want to see him connect more with Jalen Lane, right? Exciting rookie. I mean, he's a day 3 guy, but as day 3 guys go, pretty exciting type of caliber of a player. So we want to see maybe we can get that connection going just a little bit, get some more action out of Jalen Lane as a receiver, because we know that he's going to have some special teams opportunities, more on him here in just a little bit. And then again, maximize the red zone, get clean execution in the red zone, get those time scenarios. They do a 2-minute drill, they do an end of game type of scenario. We want to see those types of things as well. Of course, Jayden isn't the only quarterback, right? Quarterback, most important position on the field, most important position in the locker room and in the meeting room. Jayden not by himself. Marcus Mariota, the veteran who's more behind the scenes than he is showing his upfront value, right? But Cliff talked again about having high character guys in the buildings, guys who have done it before that can help units grow. And if that's not Marcus Mariota, I don't know who is. Not only has he been through being a young franchise savior quarterback, number 2 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, all the expectation, but he's also been through the lows of the NFL, losing the job, struggling, hitting the lows, losing streaks and all those things. Marcus Mariota doing a lot of work behind the scenes, even though you may not get to see a lot of him in highlights and media teams. You know, the media team may not get a lot of videos of him out there. There is a lot that Jayden does that either comes from, goes past, or goes through Marcus Mariota. So you go back to that Atlanta Falcons game in overtime where you see Marcus kind of pick Jayden up and say, hey, come on, man, like this is go time. There are honestly moments throughout the season, even earlier in that game, where Marcus kind of provides that little bit of a big brother juice to Jayden Daniels. So Marcus Mariota, certainly, you may not see the highlight clips all off season or during the OTAs, but certainly making his presence felt. What comes next for Sam Hartman? I think that's a really good question for the quarterback room. Is he starting to show more that he belongs in the NFL? Another high character guy. In this case, not someone who's done it in the NFL, played big time football, but not in the National Football League. But he gives Jayden kind of an age group peer, right? Peer-to-peer leadership type of guy to lean on, has his back, and is there to support him. Cliff, another quote from Cliff, quote, for the younger players, it's pretty vital to get them in here, get them comfortable so that in training camp, they can compete at a high level, end quote. Well, Sam Hartman's going to take what he learned last year. He's going to take what he's learning now and try to compete with Josh Johnson in training camp. Speaking of Josh Johnson, another veteran who's been around, digested and run a lot of offenses in his day, another mentor who can help Jayden Daniels, but he can also help Sam Hartman. You know what I mean? So he can help Sam Hartman develop as well. So a lot going on with the quarterback position. Obviously, the focus is mainly going to be on Jayden Daniels, who looks like he's in command. But he's not the only one turning heads. A few young guys are already making things interesting. And if they keep it up, they're going to force some tough decisions for this coaching staff down the line. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by LinkedIn. As we're seeing at Commanders OTAs, talent evaluation never stops. Whether it's Jayden Daniels stepping into full command of the offense, or young guys like Trey Amos and Luke McCaffrey making a little bit of noise or trying to make a little bit of noise, building the right team means recognizing potential before it's obvious to everybody else. And if you're a small business owner, that's exactly what you're trying to do as well. Your work doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. You're thinking about the big picture even when you're off the clock, which is why LinkedIn Jobs is built to work as hard as you do. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy for you to post your job for free, share it with your network, and connect with the right candidates all in one place. Their tools help you write smart job descriptions, target the best fits, and even use features like the hashtag hiring frame on your profile to boost visibility. 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires, and it's easy to see why. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Every year, there is a rookie or two who forces the coaching staff, the front office, to reconsider the depth chart a little bit. The Commanders might already have a few of those guys opening up eyes right now here in OTAs. Next segment of Locked On Commanders, we're going to talk about rookies. We're talking about role players. We're going to talk about players who are potentially on the rise as we get through the offseason workout program, getting prepared for training camp. Some young Commanders making noise early on, and the main one making noise early on, rookie cornerback Trey Amos. Had an interception in OTA number 1 off of Jayden Daniels. Strong instincts on the play, ball tracking on the play, body control, hand-eye coordination, all of it, man. The ability to come up with that play, come up with that ball as he's going through. Again, if you haven't heard about it, early on in the 7-on-7s, Michael Gallup targeted by Jayden Daniels, running an in-breaking route. Trey Amos is right there on him, sticky coverage. They get their feet tangled up, no flags, no interference, just happens in the course of action on a football field. Michael Gallup's going down. Trey Amos is losing his balance, yet when everything comes out of the wash, Trey Amos was able to come up with the interception. Very big play. Second interception of the series of that set of 7-on-7 drills for the Washington Commanders defense. The first one, unfortunately, off of Michael Gallup's hands as well, into the waiting hands of safety Jeremy Reeves, who did his thing, doing all that. But you love seeing Trey Amos play fast, right? Again, you're talking about rookies who, he's played big-time football, right? Played at Alabama, played at Ole Miss. He's done those kinds of things, but he's new in this system. He's new to the NFL. He's new to this team. But he's out there playing fast. He's playing as physical as you can, right? You're not allowed to hit. You're not allowed to do all those things. But within the confines of what they're allowed to do, he's playing physically. And the greatest thing about it is you have to look for him, right? Sometimes rookies, especially in OTAs early on in these processes, you don't have to look for them because they show up. They stand out. You're like, yep, there's the rookie right there. And it's just part of the process, right? It's not a negative on a guy. You're a rookie. You're supposed to act like a rookie sometimes. But a guy like Trey Amos makes it a little bit harder to spot him because he looks like he's done it before. He looks like he's been on the field, and he just looks comfortable, man. He just looks the part, right? Could he challenge for snaps early? That's a question I've gotten from some people in the media, also some fans that I've seen, in my day-to-day. And yeah, I think he could push for snaps early. In fact, I think he will push for snaps early. I don't know. I think it's too early to sit here and say he's going to be the starter opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, who's expected to be the first outside starter, and then Mikey Sanders still inside. I think that would be disrespectful to Jonathan Jones to say that Trey Amos is just going to come in here and just boom from day one, be, an automatic starting corner. But I certainly think a rotation is in the works. I think that is obviously something. And look, I'll tell you right now, like we're going to probably have this conversation a little bit deeper into training camp in the preseason if it really comes up. But look, Marshawn Lattimore, again, there's no sacred cows, I think is actually the words to say. No sacred cows on this roster, right? We've heard Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, Lance Newmark all say it over and over again. No sacred cows. So, a guy like Trey Amos, if Trey Amos and Jonathan Jones show this staff that they're the best two outside cornerbacks for this team, then I'm confident that if that's the case, that those two guys will be the ones to start. Marshawn Lattimore, if he doesn't show that he's the best guy for the job, he won't be out there. You know what I mean? Now, how that transpires and everything else and what comes of that and everything, that's a whole other story for a whole other day that we're not going to cross right now because we're not at that bridge yet. But is that reality possibly there? I think certainly, you know what I mean? And Trey Amos is certainly doing his part to make that conversation a conversation that needs to be had. Rookie receiver Jalen Lane working inside and out. Cliff Kingsbury talked about that, using his versatility, throwing a lot of stuff at him. They say he's taken really well to it. Looked pretty good, looked pretty comfortable running his routes, doing his individual drills. You love to see him hand catching. That's a big thing, right? Hand catching, not body catching. And the versatility just kind of stands out when you watch him. The special teams role is still going to be his best shot to get on the field consistently. I mean, you got Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown. Those three guys are ahead of you, really regardless. Luke McCaffrey's looking to take a step forward. Obviously, Jalen is looking to compete in there. Michael Gallup is looking to bring some veteran skill to the field as well. So, special teams for Jalen, probably the most, direct route to his seeing the field, but do not sleep on his potential to affect the offense as a straight up wide receiver. So 2 rookies that are really standing out. Josh Connerly Jr., it's not that he's not doing well. It's just, it's hard when there's no pass rush, there's no pads, there's no real blocking going on for an offensive lineman to truly stand out. I am going to look a little bit on Wednesday, our second day out there at OTAs. Going to watch a little bit more of the footwork, a little bit more of the diagramming, a little bit more of the, we talk about it being kind of a choreographed operation there on the offensive line. I'm going to look a little bit more at that as well. Some other young guys that we're watching, of course, wide receiver Luke McCaffrey is someone that I know other people have predicted is going to make have a big, maybe not necessarily a breakout season, but just have a really good amount of growth from his rookie year to his second year. Cliff Kingsbury said last week, quote, "Last year we had him learning both inside and outside, and it probably overloaded him a bit. But this year you can see the comfort level, just watching him move around. He's not thinking as much. He's playing fast and letting his natural gifts take over. And that's exactly what we want to see. So I expect him to make a big jump," end quote, to take a big jump, end quote. So Cliff Kingsbury has a lot of hope for Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey has a lot of raw ability, and I think you saw a lot of good things out of him last year. We did see the team kind of wind him down a little bit from offensive participation, more into special teams participation. I do think there's a chance that Luke has a special teams role again this year, but not because he won't have an offensive role, but because it's just a way to get him on the field even more than perhaps what he will do on the offense, right? Tight end Ben Sinnott, he's been a conversation piece ever since he was drafted, right? You talk about Adam Peters coming out and saying he reminds him a lot of Kyle Juszczyk. So you wanted to see a lot of H-back, a lot of motion work, a lot of red zone work, a lot of lead blocking, things like that, chip block releases, things like that. Didn't get to see as much of it in his rookie season as we thought we would or thought we wanted to, thanks in large part to Zach Ertz finding the fountain of youth in the DMV and having a career resurgency that was a lot of fun to watch. Certainly a lot of fun to see him back as well. Zach, we'll talk about him here in just a minute. And then another guy who's still young, right? He's been on the team now for a few years, but safety Quan Martin, I think he's starting to settle into his role just a little bit. Got a full year at safety last year for Joe A. Jr. I think this offseason he's a little bit more comfortable doing the things he needs to do. Most underappreciated player on the team, according to NFL.com recently. This dude separated both of his shoulders in the 2024 season, waited to have surgery until after the season. First separation happened in week 3. He separated his right shoulder in week 3. That's so early in the season. And then a few weeks later, separated his other shoulder and still continued to play the entire season. I do remember using a non-contact jersey quite a bit last year during practices. Didn't know it was that bad though, which, look, I'll tell you right now, I have a lot of conversations with Quan and, I genuinely care about him. But, ask him how you doing, stuff like that. And he did the right thing, protected the business, right? Protect the organization. Don't tell me just how bad those injuries are, things like that. And that's exactly what he should do. But man, just talking to him last week after OTA practices, just kind of on the side, I told him, I'll give you guys my side of the conversation. I told him, like, man, that's big props to you, brother. That's tough to go through. So young guys are flashing, no question about it. But this team won't hit its ceiling unless the vets do their part too. So who's already leading from the front this season and who still needs to get on the field? Let's get a little bit more into that as we continue this episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Commanders are a young team in key spots, but the early chemistry we're seeing in the OTAs starts with the coaching staff as part of it, well, along with the vets showing up and buying in to help out the young guys. The ones who have been there are already setting the tone, and the ones who haven't been there yet, their impact will be felt soon enough. So veteran integration, we're talking unit chemistry here in the final segment of Locked On Commanders, and there's some new faces establishing themselves among the leaders, and the leaders reestablishing themselves with some new faces. Tight end Zach Ertz, certainly one of the more steady players on this roster, a steady coach on the field on the offensive side of things, and on the defensive side of things, you got Bobby Wagner. Both these guys are on the field. They're active. They're helping out young guys who have already kind of established themselves, like Jayden Daniels and Mikey Sanders still, right? Two guys who still need veteran leaders out there on the field, helping them, just kind of saying, look, let's make sure we do things the right way and all those things. They're also helping set the tempo, whether it's in individual drills, whether it's in the red zone drills, whatever the team is doing, these veterans are out there kind of showing up first things and foremost, right? There was a period of the practice where Zach basically didn't have anything to do, right? It was a little bit of special teams going on. There was a little bit of individual assessment going on, but he was the only tight end. So him and tight ends coach David Rye, like, you could sit there and just BS for a little bit and maybe kick the hacky sack around if you want to, or poke fun at the media and all that stuff. And instead, he's out there working on releases. You know what I mean? He's working on releases. They got an equipment staff member or a coach's assistant out there throwing passes to him up the seam and doing things like that. Like, he's out there getting work, right? Like, we're here to work. We're here to get a benefit, so we're going to get a benefit. And that is the kind of thing that you hear people talk about. Like, if you see Zach Ertz doing it with the career that Zach has had and everything he's accomplished, if Zach is out there doing it, you as a young guy have no reason to not be doing stuff like that. So he really helps set the tempo for the entire team, right? His presence also gives the offense and Jayden Daniels specifically a reliable outlet that he's worked with before, has a rapport with already, especially while Terry McLaurin is not in attendance. And of course, you have veteran receiver Deebo Samuel, competitive from the start of his time with the Washington Commanders, working hard while he's learning the offense. He's going out there, he's playing hard, he's running his routes quickly. Whatever he needs to adjust, he'll adjust. But he's going to go out there, he's going to do it full speed, and then he'll adjust what he needs to. Competes in every rep. Remember, if every dayers after last week's practice kind of explained the drill where, you didn't have like the dummies out there, but you had the other receivers out there kind of waving their hands in front of the receiver catching the pass from Bobby Ingram. The wide receivers coach kind of, give a little bit of distraction, all that stuff. And you see a guy like Deebo out there competing with every single rep, right? Doesn't want to mess up a single one, doesn't want to drop a single pass. That is the type of energy these young receivers like Jalen Lane need to be around, because if the veterans are out there not taking the OTA serious, then what reason does a young guy have to take it serious? Cliff Kingsbury said of Deebo, quote, "He's got a natural feel for things as he's figuring the offense out," end quote. Pretty much diagrams or describes exactly what we're saying. He's going out there playing fluid, playing fast while he's learning his role and what he needs to do with the offense. His chemistry with Jayden Daniels is still developing, sure, but the talent foundation for both those men is clearly still there. DBs, a young group of guys are getting some real reps, right? With Marshawn Lattimore out, Trey Amos obviously is getting a lot more work. So Lattimore is out. A lot of more work for Trey Amos. Jonathan Jones, not a young guy, but new to the team here. He's also getting more work because Marshawn Lattimore, like you assume that if Marshawn was here, probably be Jonathan and Trey rotating, right? But because Marshawn's not here, Jonathan is getting more work. Trey and Noah Igbenogany are rotating. And Noah Igbenogany pretty much exclusively outside last week. Obviously he was the starting slot once Mikey Sanderson moved outside last year, but he was getting pretty much exclusive outside work last week. So again, a lot of valuable work happening. So even though Marshawn Lattimore isn't here, there is a trickle-down benefit to some other players. Quan Martin, we talked about him a little bit, not participating in the 7-on-7s last week, continuing to fully recover from his dual shoulder surgeries, gives other guys the opportunity to get out there and get some reps as well. So further development of guys like Tyler Owens and all that stuff, certainly going to benefit from there. The silver lining of Lattimore's absence altogether, Martin's absence from certain team drills, those reps are going to help accelerate the development and communication for young DBs all around them. O-line cohesion, waiting on Laramie Tunsil, right? Laramie Tunsil not here yet, but Tyler Biotis, Brandon Coleman, Nick Allegretti, all three of those guys are here right now. They look like the front runners, right? Nothing is set in stone, but they look like the front runners to be your starting interior offensive line. Brandon Coleman on the left, Nick Allegretti on the right. And I think that was kind of the biggest question, is how's that interior going to look? And then Josh Connolly, Andrew Wiley kind of swapping out at right tackle, like we kind of talked about coming into things. We'll continue to monitor the offensive line work. Trent Scott was the guy that I saw. Again, couldn't watch all the O-line drills because of everything going on at the same time. But when I was watching them, Trent Scott was the guy filling in at left tackle for Laramie Tunsil. Absences worth tracking but not panicking about. Again, Laramie Tunsil, Marshawn Lattimore, Terry McLaurin, all of them are veterans. All of them know how to do this. They all know their business. They all know what they're doing. Proven resumes. And look, at the end of the day, man, if they open the door for somebody to come take their job, I don't think Terry's at risk of that. I don't think Laramie's at risk of that. Really, Marshawn's the only one who might be at risk of that. If they open that door, they open that door, man. No need to sound alarms. But you would love to see any of the three, all three, there tomorrow. I don't expect to see any of them there tomorrow, but sooner better than later. Sooner is always better than later in these types of situations. Come training camp, however, these guys are going to be full go. They're going to need to be full go to ensure that the team is ready for everything they need to get ready for. And while they're not at OTAs, at least they're not posting party videos on yachts. Even if that's what they're doing. Look, it's your time. If you're not at OTAs, you do with your time what you will. Just understand what is a good look and what is a bad look. So, the guys who've been out there setting the tone, once the rest show up, we'll see how close this team really is to clicking, once again, as a full unit. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Commanders. Coming up on Locked On Commanders, we're doing our weekly mailbag, minimum of one per week, depending on how many great questions we get ahead of our second day of OTAs. That'll be our Thursday episode. The OTA episode will be our Thursday episode. We've got Friday coming too, so there's plenty more to come this week. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, you can text them directly to me by becoming a Locked On Commanders Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Get access to me and the show like never before. I'll interact with you. You'll interact with me. It'll be a good time for all, and everybody will just benefit from it as we continue to do right now. For your second listen of the day, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, who are going to help keep you the most informed NFL fan around. You can find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this episode. Thanks as always for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. To all the everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you. I continue to thank you for coming through every single day. Until next time, stay safe, be good to one another. We'll talk soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.